Hi guys! So it's time to find out what book I'm going to be reading next, and it will be non-fiction. But first, because the Cheltenham Literature Festival has been on, I of course bought loads of books. And I've also got those couple of books, in case you haven't watched it, the video that I did with my sister on our top 10 books, there was a couple that my sister lent me, which were in her top 10, so I've got those as well. So I'm going to first tell you about the new books, and then I'm going to announce what the book is I'm going to be reading next. Okay, so the two books that my sister lent me are E. Lockhart's We Were Liars and Kate Morton's The Forgotten Garden. This one is about a family on an island who own a private island, and that's all that my sister kind of described in the video, and also all she's kind of described to me, because if you tell more it will give massive stuff away, from what I understand. So that's all I know about that. Can't tell you anymore. The Forgotten Garden is Kate Morton book. I've read one of Kate Morton's books before, The Secret Keeper, and really liked it. It was a great read, but this was the first book that made my sister proper ugly cry, as she described it. About three women in three different time zones related to this one location. So that one's going into the fiction jar as well. Sorry, We Were Liars is fiction as well. So for the others in fiction that I have bought recently, there was from that top 10 list, one of my sister's, but this is my copy that I've bought, is F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. I had issues with this book. I tried to read it after my sister read it and found real problems with it because his writing style really didn't work for me. But that was like 5 odd years ago now, so I want to give him another go. So The Great Gatsby is going in the jar. We also have Jennifer Niven's Holding Up the Universe. This is one my sister read just before we did the top 10 video. She'd managed to read like 5 books in a week, which she said was completely unprecedented for her. It was absolutely fantastic week. She had these most amazing books, she said, that she read, and this was one of them, about a girl in a school who's it was extremely overweight. She's lost a load of weight, but she's still overweight in school, and how she is accepted by the people there, in particular relationship with one boy. So yeah, she recommended I buy it, so I bought it. So yeah, so that's going into the fiction jar. Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven. Okay, then during the literature festival, I went to a lecture on Russian literature. Now, you guys know I read War and Peace in January, absolutely loved it. I've got Anna Karenina in the fiction jar, so I was like, oh my god, I need to go out and buy a load of Russian literature. I've only bought 2, so I haven't gone absolutely mental, but the 2 that I have bought are Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago. Both of these I've never read before. I remember starting to read Crime and Punishment when I was about 17 or something, but I think it was because I was doing my A-levels and that I kind of stopped. So I have sort of started, but yeah, I didn't reach too far into it from what I can remember. But I'm gonna give it another go. So there we go. So a couple more Russian literature stuff to add to the jar. Crime and Punishment and Dr. Zhivago. I've never read Dr. Zhivago. I've never tried it before, so I think that's going to be really good. That was an awesome lecture on Russian literature that I attended. And this last one for fiction that I actually bought yesterday, because it was one that I went to a lecture on writing. Because as you know, I like to do writing as a hobby, and one of the authors, they were talking about their books and how to write a character with a secret, basically. And one of the authors was Jane Bailey. Jane Bailey is actually a local author. She lives in Gloucester, Gloucestershire, where I am. And this is her 5th book, and it was so intriguing. I didn't go in there intending to buy her book, but I ended up buying her book. What was rescued is basically inspired by a true life event, in that during the war, when children were sent away during the Blitz and everything, they didn't just go to the country in the UK and everything. Some were sent overseas, and in 1940 there was a ship heading to Canada taking a load of evacuees with them. And they were being taken by the Navy, they were being looked after, and one day this ship went through this terrible storm, and out of 85 children, only 13 survived the sinking of this ship. And that inspired her to write this book about three children who survived that, and their reunion many years later, and a secret that of what they saw, and the person who has the secret doesn't know it's a secret. It's just a distant memory, but if that secret gets out, it can have major ramifications. So I was just so intrigued by Jane. She was a really, really interesting woman to listen to. This is her 5th book. And as I said, she's a local writer, and I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to buy this now. So that was What Was Rescued by Jane Bailey. Okay, so that's the fiction load. And then we've got non-fiction. And of course, because I went to the lecture on Russian literature, I also went to another lecture on Russia, the revolution, and that in October 1917, because it's the 100th anniversary this year, or I should say this month. And I found it fascinating. So I got some books about Russia. So the first non-fiction book is Helen Rappaport's Caught in the Revolution, which looks at what happened in St. Petersburg in that time. It's a non-fiction writer who I've never come across before, and I'm so intrigued to read it after the stuff that I learned during this lecture on what people went through during that month, with Lenin's coup and everything. That coup, sorry, not coup. that's how you spell it, not how you pronounce it. His coup and everything, and how it affected people. I found that section so interesting when I read War and Peace. Really, really interesting bit of history. So I've got one that's just focused on St. Petersburg, and then the other 2 are 2 books I've actually picked up on and off over about a year or so, and I've loved. But I've never bought them, so I thought, why not? Go for it. And these are about the Romanovs. So the first one is 4 Sisters: The Lost Lives of the Romanovs Grand Duchesses by Helen Rappaport. Oh yeah, it's the same author. How stupid of me. This is the same author as the Caught in the Revolution. So I have got 2 books now of this author who I've never read before. But I've picked this up several times. I find the Romanovs pretty interesting, fascinating. There's actually going to be a TV series about them. I think it's been done by the same people who did the Borgias, which is due to hit screens, I think, next year. So I think that could be really interesting. And yeah, of course, the sisters and the legend of Anastasia and everything, of surviving their brutal murders, is always intrigued the world. So yes, so that's 4 Sisters. That's going to go in the jar. And the last one that I have to go in the jar is by Andrew Cook, and this just covers, it's called The Murder of the Romanovs. This obviously just covers the time when they were being basically under house arrest, which then led to their murder, and then the aftermath of what happened. There's some pretty gory pictures in this one, just so you know, because I kind of flipped through it and then came across something I did not expect to see, and I was a bit taken aback by it. But yes, so that one is going to be going to the jar as well. Now, as to the book that I will be reading next, I have actually chosen myself. Now, as you know, I've got the jars and everything, but about, I don't know, 4 months ago or something now, I was desperate to read it. I borrowed it from my dad. I wanted to read it before the film came out in the cinema. I was, you know, everything. So I decided, no, I'm going to forego the jar and read it straight away because I had fiction as a category coming up. So because I've done that with the fiction jar, it's only fair that I do it with the non-fiction jar, and the non-fiction is my next choice. And the non-fiction book I am desperate to read is actually the last book that I've bought at the Literature Festival, which I haven't held up for you yet in this video, and that is by a fantastic journalist called Gary Young, called Another Day in the Death of America. Now, this is a book that he wrote because he found this stat that said in America, every day of all the people that are killed by guns, 7 of them are children. And he was really taken aback by that. He didn't believe that at all. No, that can't be possible. So he chose a day completely at random, which was, I think it said the 20th of November, 2003. 2013, and he wrote the biographies of the children who died on that day due to guns in the order that they died. It was so fascinating to hear him speak about this book when I saw him at the Literature Festival, and there was a woman who spoke who was an American and said how she owned a gun and everything, and basically told him that he wrote the wrong book, and his reply was actually fantastic, because the book she wanted him to have written was the book that basically reassured Americans and told them it's okay, you can relax, put your gun down, and then she would. And he said, well, ignoring these children who the most any one of them got in the media shown in the media about was 80 words, and that was one of the 10 children. So ignoring these children and anybody else who has been killed by guns is a crime. And he said, and if it wasn't for people like me who are willing to write their stories, who would then write that book that will make you put your gun down? It's so true. So true. He got a big round of applause for that. And everything. And he said, if you want that book written, write it yourself, because I'm not going to write it. I had so much respect for him. I met him afterwards. He signed my book very kindly, as you can see. He was absolutely brilliant to listen to. If you're able to find any interviews or anything with Gary Young on YouTube or anything, please do. He's a great journalist. But I'm desperate to start reading this, so I've decided to forego the non-fiction jar this one time and choose this as the book I'm going to be reading next. So I'm going to be starting that right as soon as I stop recording this video. Okay then, guys, so I will be back with my thoughts on Gary Young, Another Day in the Death of America, as soon as I've done reading. I hope you've enjoyed this rather extended version of the announcement video for the stacks of books that I've bought. But then when the Literature Festival is on, I buy loads of stuff. I haven't even covered... There were 3 other books that I bought that they were presents for people. And I don't want to obviously put them on the screen here, because then they're going to know what they're going to get for Christmas. But yeah, there's still 2 more days of the festival to go. I'm so excited for the other days. And yeah, I'll be back with my thoughts on Gary Young's book as soon as I've finished it. Alright then, guys. Bye.